As many of you may know, my dad survived Parkinson's disease for about 18 years, and in his last 5 years, roughly, he dealt with advancing dementia. My mother was his primary caregiver up until the last several months when we moved him to an assisted living memory care unit. Last spring, she was still caring for him at home. They liked to go on outings, which got more difficult as his disease progressed. And last spring, though, there was a softball game, and it was the local firefighters and another organization playing right there. Their 55 plus community had a softball field. And so they jumped in their golf cart and went to see the game. And there were vendors there and they were enjoying the game. And then my mom drove the cart over so that she could get food from a vendor. She walked 5, 10 feet to where she could purchase the food. My dad sat in the golf cart. And in that short period of time, my dad called out, "Help, I'm being held hostage." A firefighter happened to be nearby and heard him. And he came over to my dad, listening to him, hearing him say he's being held hostage, and waited around till my mother came back. And when she did, much to her dismay, the man told her what he had said. And my mom tried to explain, "I'm his wife. I'm not taking him anywhere." And yet the firefighter felt the need to talk to his supervisor before he would let them go. And of course, the supervisor came along and explained the situation, and everything worked out. Yet it was a challenging situation for my mom, but also something she shared and we laughed about. Last summer, after my dad moved into the assisted living, my sister would try to come visit when she could. I was there all the time, me and Don, especially as he got settled in the facility. And one visit, my sister spent some time with him. We were there together, and she spent time just by herself. And after she returned home, she sent us a poem she had written based on her experiences and communication with my father, taking some of the insights from that story. And so this poem that she created, her friend of hers asked to turn it into a song via AI music. And we're going to share that with you later on in the podcast today.
And hello, this is Don.
And this is Gina with Focused Healthy Family.
And today is podcast number 152. And we're talking about help, I'm a hostage. So
what we're talking about is behavior, the foreign language every caregiver must learn.
And let me first talk about just a quick tip for our caregiving people out there. This is tip number 27. This is from the book Caregiver 101, the 100 ways for keeping caregiving from making you crazy.
By Mike Collins.
And today's tip is number 27. It's don't do it. Being an adult, and especially being a caregiver, often means having to learn about things you didn't want to know about in the first place. Make a list of the things you don't like about caregiving. Look for the items on your list that can be delegated, contracted for, or minimized, or simply not done.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
Sometimes we think there's certain things we have to do, and yet we really need to ask ourselves, do all these things have to be done this way?
Yeah, well, you have to, at a certain point, it almost gets that way because you get frustrated with so much to do that you've got to prioritize stuff,
It reminds me of being a new parent, having young children, and what matters. Do we have to clean the house every week? Do we, what things really need to absolutely positively get done? And for me, the priority was always the children and our relationship. As Don can attest, I'm not someone to be fussing about the house, insisting on it being cleaned a certain way. Dishes needed to be done, so we had dishes for the next day. Meals needed to be made. Yet I feel good about how I kind of put the kids first in most ways. Sure, I messed up sometimes. And it's the same thing if you're helping to care for an aging loved one. And, any of us juggling multiple things on our plate, looking at what are we doing? Can someone else do it? Like you said, can it be delegated? Can we hire someone else to do those things? I have a friend who doesn't like to clean and has a grown daughter that lives at home. And so the daughter's paying for a cleaning service to come in. and just looking for other opportunities and things.
So today, Gina and I have always believed in this statement about behavior is just another form of communication. And so today we're talking about how our aging loved one behaves and what they're trying to communicate through it.
And particularly someone with dementia. This is part of this information is from a talk we've prepared to give to support groups, dementia care, and so we wanted to share with you some ideas and new ways maybe of looking at this. So looking at the story of my dad, this was kind of a theme with my dad, this behavior of calling out for help. While he was living at home, he would also dart out the front door, sometimes in just his socks and minimal clothing, run to the neighbor. He had a neighbor next door he would frequently go to, and he'd just like to sit down and be heard and be listened to. And because of Parkinson's can affect cognition, not with everybody, but it did for my dad in the later years. And there can be hallucinations, things, seeing things that aren't there, hearing things that aren't there, as well as delusions, being convinced that someone's out to hurt someone or something terrible is going to happen or all kinds of scenarios. And so he frequently felt unsafe, that something terrible was coming and he had to get out. And so this was a challenge, this behavior.
Well, and that's one of the first behaviors we even talk about is
Exit,
exiting.
what we call exit seeking behavior.
Yes.
And for people who live in, this is why my dad went to the memory care unit, because there are plenty of people with dementia in assisted living facilities, even independent living, nursing homes. But if they're not engaging in exit seeking behavior, needing that extra attention,
Looking for the key to get out of the building.
yeah. The unit my dad lived on was small, and we enjoyed the time we spent there with one woman who frequently packed her bags and was
Bags
ready
and every bit of her in was carrying out with it, trying to get to the exit.
and often asking. There's another story where there was a situation going on. There were medical responders, medical personnel there attending to someone who had medical issues, and a resident who looked just like an average person um, asked one of the responders, "Can you let me out the door?" And he did. Well, this man had dementia, and he wound up wandering on the streets, and so this was a fail in the system, right? There's supposed to be a locked unit. I personally believe the responders should have known better. The staff should have had better things in place. Things can happen, and they can be very clever in their tactics. And so this can be a challenge, whether it's trying to get out of bed by themselves when it's not safe, trying to get out the door, going up and down stairs. It's just one of the many challenging behaviors, as we might call them, that we can experience in someone with dementia.
I mean, I kind of laugh at it, but it's funny, but at the same time, it's really serious because you're letting somebody out with a, they don't know what they're doing, and so yeah.
So when you're looking at your aging loved one, maybe you've cared for someone, or you know someone, or you're dealing with, does my parent have dementia? They're having these things going on. So what are those challenging behaviors? Ask yourself, what kinds of things are you seeing? Sometimes it's a matter of them not wanting to eat anymore. They don't want to eat. In facilities, sometimes it's a portion size. They're too much food is overwhelming to them. It can be helpful to present it in smaller portions.
So I mean, and with that in eating, do they have the right utensils? Sometimes they don't have the right grip site, so they need a special utensil or something like that. So those things can play into it.
And so we're looking at these behaviors, what is it they're trying to communicate? What are they trying to tell us? A fun story. Well, this is something I've seen frequently in nursing homes. Someone's in the open area being observed by the staff, often sitting in a common area or by the nurse's station, and they start taking off clothes. So there was this woman recently, and in fact, I had approached her because I needed to do some assessment with her, and she's fallen asleep in the chair. Well, after I stepped away, I observed that she had her sweatshirt pulled up over her head. And first, there was a caregiver, staff member that came up to her and asked her, "Are you trying to get away from that noise?" There was some kind of beeping going on in the background. So I was like, that's a great way to jump in and dive in. And And yet this woman continued to try to get the shirt back on the woman as she continued to try to take it off. I went down the hall to see someone else, came back probably 15 minutes later, and that woman was still there trying to get the shirt on this woman. So, are we looking at what's really going on? She was tired. Did she think it's time for bed? I want to get changed. Is that why she continued to persist? Was the shirt uncomfortable? Did she feel like she was trying to get away from the sound and that was her exit out? Taking that time to listen to that, there's often more behind how they're trying to communicate with us.
One is she tired? Is she hungry? Is she thirsty? Did she need to go to the bathroom and she's trying to get it off so she go to the bathroom? All those things are kind of unmet needs that they don't pay attention to.
So we're looking at all this information, what can be done with different challenging behaviors. So what can we do? How can we resolve these issues more easily?
That you got to flip them. They're one
Oh,
in back, one in front. I
Don
was actually going
provided
through
me.
some of the paperwork.
That
Sorry,
explains why I'm feeling a little lost right now. Um,
not following that.
um, there it is. Excuse me as I flip through a bunch of pieces of paper. Maybe we can edit that out. So when there's something that's challenging us, we're not able to get things done, or engaging in a behavior that's frustrating, we need to stop and consider the environment. What's going on around them? Are there outside sounds? Um, are something different happening? Are they in a new place, a new space? Are there new people going by? Is there other like I saw this all the time in the emergency room. Every time my dad was in the emergency room, that they had these rooms that were semi-private. And in one hospital, there was like a wall, but then there was a curtain separating. So you could still hear everything going on the other side, and put a man with dementia in a new situation to begin with. And then someone who's paranoid, and he kept saying, they're talking about us. You need to go over there and find out what they're talking about. And sometimes he was at one of the busy Charlotte hospitals and there were police and all different things happening going on. And he thought
And his mind was going all
oh, I
kinds of
remember one
places
time
with,
saying, whatever I did wrong, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll apologize. He's hearing this stuff going on with cops and thinking he's in trouble and being arrested. So, what is that environment? And maybe it's at home. I know there were times um, we
too
had
many
people
people.
coming into the house, and it, can throw off a routine. It can be confusing and challenging with other outside things going on. Um,
We have to think about their sensories, the sight, the smell, the taste, the touch, the hearing, what they can hear. Are there noises, like you were saying? Are there noises out there that they want to stop? Or are they seeing too many people or unusual people that they don't get? Like you said, people coming into the house can really cause confusion.
and visual sensitivities, whether the light is too bright. There's a lot of decreased vision sometimes with aging, macular degeneration. You lose the ability to see your central vision, glaucoma, you lose peripheral vision. Do they have diminished eyesight, hypersensitivity to light, as well as other senses
Well,
like
yeah, the
hearing?
the touching the touching of the clothes, or um, having to touch something they don't want to touch. That, like, well, depending on, what are the things going on in their mind. They may have things like OCD, which they don't want to touch unusual things, and they'll want to clean themselves to do it or something like that. You don't see that. Um,
And are we stepping into their personal space when we step in to help them? Are we getting too close to them? Um, And then tuning into situational cues. I described the story of the woman taking her shirt off who had appeared very sleepy, falling asleep even. Um, she like, oh, I'm tired. It's and then saying, oh, you're tired. Okay, it's time to get ready for bed. I'm gonna take my clothes off. Are there other things going on where their situation in their mind is very different than the reality? But to them, something's happened that's cued them that it's time to do this, or looking at those small little things that we often miss.
well, and then thinking about unmet needs, you know, have they taken their medicine today, or are they overtaking medicine if they're home? Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Do they something that they have to go to the bathroom and they, they're taking the shirt off just to go to the bathroom, so it's those kind of needs we have to think about when we're dealing with them.
Yeah, looking at the basic needs of, are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Do they need to eliminate? Are they already wet or soil that need to get changed? Their energy level, are they just exhausted and it's manifesting as other behaviors? Think of young children when they get overtired. What did you used to call it, Don? The kids got beyond tired, lawnmower mode. They were revving up.
Well, yeah, 'cause we had a lawnmower way back when, it might even be before we were married, that would, when it got to the very end of the tank, uh, the last bit would just be rearing up, and then it would just die. And so, yeah, I kind of gave that on to the kids because there'd be time when that last bit of energy was left in them that they would take off with it. But
And so, thinking about all these different things in mind, what can we do about it? My papers are all messed up. Um,
I do that on
so Don,
purpose.
what can we do about it?
Well, first we have to pause, right?
Yes.
So that we can kind of evaluate the situation, what's going on for them.
I mean, take that situation of the woman taking her shirt off, and the woman came up to her and said, are you trying to get away from that noise? So I'm not sure what transpired after that because I was moving on,
But
but
that's a good way to approach,
it is. And also like stepping back. Sometimes they can verbally tell us, and other times we have to tune into the cues. Could she have relocated her? Let's try this spot over here. Let's move your chair and see if it's any better. Um,
It's kind of it, it's what do you call it? This, you have to kind of guess at what you might do.
mhm.
And if it doesn't work, you step back to try something different with it.
At the same time, you don't want to bombard them with questions.
Yeah.
What's wrong? Is it too
Yeah.
loud? Is it too bright? Are you uncomfortable? For one, that's overwhelming to anyone. And two, there's processing speed is often much slower. Um, and you need to do simpler. When people with dementia and other conditions affecting the brain, asking them to do something, you really need to pause because the processing, the ability to understand what you're saying and then follow through with it can take extra time, as can answering a simple question or what we feel is simple.
Well, then you need to acknowledge their situation and the feelings that are going on for them. What is it they're thinking about? What's going on in their mind?
And turn into facial expressions. I do this with everybody, even people without dementia. When I'm working with them, maybe they have had shoulder surgery or some kind of injury, and I'm trying to get motion. And I pay attention to their face because not everybody will tell me that hurts. They think, oh, I just got to tough this out. And so the face, it can to let us know what's going on with that person. And, especially as we're asking a question, maybe their face will give us some clues as to what's going on. So tuning into those small cues.
Well, then, like we talked about, not overbearing the questions on them and offer support and options for them. And like you say, it's you try one thing. If it doesn't work, you back away and you maybe try another
And
one.
like with the woman taking her shirt off, don't just jump in and go, oh, you want to get away from that sound? Let's go over here. Like, give a chance to get some response. Um, and that takes a little bit of time. And yet, this woman spent over 15 minutes trying to put her shirt back on. Um, Otherwise, people are getting frustrated. People are getting angry. I was listening to Teepa Snow recently, and she's wonderful. And she talks about behaviors and people getting agitated. And she said, what we don't recognize is that the caregiver, the person involved with this person, whether it's, a staff member or family member, they're becoming agitated. We don't see that when we say, what's going on? What are you doing? Why are you trying to leave the door? Put your shirt back on. Our own agitation, and if we respond in that manner, is just rallying up their agitation. Um, we talk about this a lot with kids, and just increasing the anxiety. And that's something we don't recognize. We think what we're doing is reasonable. Well, why do you want to go outside? You don't need to go outside right now. We feel that's reasonable. And yet we're frustrated, right? We need to see that. And then that's coming off to that person.
Well, and we want to remember kind of their processing speed, how they process the things. It's very different when as you grow older. That changes how they handle it.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier, talking about, when you're talking to them, whether you're asking them to do something or waiting for a response, giving them extra time.
When you talked about KISS, keep it simple.
Yes.
And we could say keep it simple, seniors.
Keep it simple. For seniors, you don't want to over explain things. A lot of times someone, with dementia, you don't want to jump in and say, okay, now I want you to do this and this, let's take a walk, offering your hand, just like with kids, distraction can be helpful. Someone who's trying to get out a door, maybe taking their hand and say, would you like to walk with me? Sometimes that might work. And I lost my train of thought.
Woo-hoo, choo choo choo. It's coming back in the
So
train.
keeping it simple, not get away from the door, let's do this instead. Like, let's take a walk. I introduce myself and dementia care units, especially, I fill in at different places. So I'm new to this person. Um, I've learned not to always say I'm the therapist. Sometimes it's just, would you like to do this with me? How about, we do this together, engaging them simply with an activity rather than lots of complicated explanations. Surely I introduce myself. Might be as simple as, hi, my name's Gina. And sometimes they'll tell me their name, which is good to confirm I've got the right person. And so as we look at our seniors and these behaviors and these challenges, recognizing ways that we can support them, recognizing that they might be trying to communicate something.
Well, your dad, I know many times he tried to communicate, and it was really difficult for his words didn't come out the way that you would think they would.
Yeah. And, I was thinking about this recently that he always wanted to be around mom, or if I was there, or Gina, he would call out for one of us. And he recognized his limitations often, in many moments he did. And he knew that we could understand him better. Other people, I remember my mom told me she went to the doctor one time and the doctor said, is this how he always talks? How do you understand him? And it's like, well, she's learned to understand him. They were married for 59 years. And so he relied on us to help communicate for him. And so realizing that, looking at the big picture here, my dad also talked in analogies. I realized that later on, there's many things that he said. And so that's maybe how he felt inside. I need to get out. I feel trapped here. Um, and this is part of the message that my sister writes about in the poem that she created. We also need to step back sometimes, and the behavior they're engaging in, maybe it's not really causing problems. It's not affecting other people. We're just bothered by it. And maybe we need to say, hey, let's just join them, because someone with dementia, they're often in a moment that's not the current place and time. There may be somewhere else. And another
Well,
fun story.
yeah, go ahead.
So we moved my dad into this memory care facility, and initially it was an adjustment. My mother was still living an hour and a half away, trying to get the house ready to sell. And so we made sure that me or Don went to visit him every day and kind of getting in a routine. And often he was kind of forlorn and just frustrated. And I'd ask the staff about how he was doing. So one day I came in, it was shortly before lunchtime, and they said, yeah, your dad called us into the office and said he needed to talk to all us and said he needed to talk about finances. And so I'm thinking in my head about this, and I'm like, okay, my dad was a financial planner, and it was the 80s, and he would bring clients in by hosting seminars. And he'd have it at a place where they'd serve a meal, and people would come, enjoy the meal, listen to his presentation, and then from this, he could gain clients. And so, in sitting down with my dad that day, I realized he's giving a presentation, he's preparing for one of his seminars. And so I sat with him and he's talking about, can you help me in the finances? And we need to do this and we need to do that. And I said, well, let's wait for the food to come. And I kept reiterating that. And at some point, this small man who hunched posture, who had a soft, low voice to begin with, and it was often hard to understand him. He stood up from his chair and he said, has everyone gotten what they want to eat? If you don't like what you have, we could probably get you something else. Does everybody have a drink? And I'm just mesmerized that he stands up, he's speaking loud and clearly, engaging with a room full of faces that are kind of mostly staring off into the distance, not necessarily recognizing what he's doing. And I'm like, oh my goodness, he's going to give a seminar. And as he's talking to me, he's like, are you ready? Are you? And I'm like, wait a minute, am I the guest speaker? And I'm thinking to myself, and I stepped away, like, I need to use the ladies' room, and just feeling a little overwhelmed. It's a little embarrassing, right? He's in the lunchroom and he wants to give a presentation. And yet the lightness in this situation, it wasn't hurting anybody. It wasn't, wasn't affecting anyone else's behavior. And, what I did is I went back, and somehow he started eating, and I returned as he was eating his food. Yet there was an opportunity there that I could have joined in with him. I could have said, okay, so what are the points I need to cover? And I could have gotten paper and written things down. At the same time, I did enjoy, the moment and seeing him feeling so confident. And with Parkinson's dementia, people don't really disappear the way someone with Alzheimer's does, where they kind of really, yes, there's quite a period of time where they're in and out. But then, with the advanced stages, they're kind of, for the most part, kind of in another place or in their own world. And with my dad, at least in his Parkinson's and dementia, there were many, many moments he was aware that he wasn't able to express himself and he wasn't clear. And so for this little moment in time, he had the joy of thinking he was giving a seminar, and just the lightness in his, and just enjoying that moment was a treat, was a gift.
So today we talked about communication and how behavior is a form of that, and how it affects our loved ones and what we do with them and how we communicate with them.
And there's so many factors involved. And that's where, if you reach out to Don and I, we'd love to consult with you, share this information with other loved ones, listen to our other podcasts. But to work with someone one-on-one is a really special thing, to get to know them and their environment and situation, and help you kind of suss out these challenges and find new solutions to it. So please join us every Thursday for our podcast. You can learn more at focusedhealthyfamily.com. You can see our information, contact information for us, information about Don's tapping sessions that he's been doing about twice a month, just a quick group online tapping that you can join in for free, and the other resources that we have. Of course, you find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all at Focused Healthy Family.
And today we're doing something a little different.
We'd like to close out the podcast. The poem my sister wrote, a friend of hers asked if she could turn it into a song. I believe it was her friend's daughter, and used AI music generated and to play this beautiful song, and kind of thinking about the message. These were words and things my dad said and my sister's experience, and also kind of the deeper message in the song. Hope you enjoy it.
It's a difficult journey, others might know, watching and wincing as the villain takes hold. It's like an invasion he didn't invite, his ghosts and demons whispering lies. Help, I'm a hostage, he said to the man. We're trying our best to map out a plan, frustrated and helpless, adrift on this boat. Time's taking its time while the flicker dims low. Are you real or an illusion? He asked me today. I squeezed his hand, wiped a tear away. It's hard to process, it's painful to watch as he sits in his chair, a hostage of loss. Help, I'm a hostage, he said to the man. We're trying our best to map out a plan, frustrated and helpless, adrift on this boat. Time's taking its time while the flicker dims low. The meal on his plate, the event of the day. Aside from the weather, not much to say. He wants to go home, he just wants to leave, but there's no turning back from from this wicked disease. What did I do to deserve this, he said. Where are my keys? That is in my bed. Occasional glimmers of memories and light, mostly by daytime, rarely at night. Help, I'm a hostage, he said to the man. We're trying our best to map out a plan. Frustrated and helpless, adrift on this boat. Time's taking its time while the flicker dims low. I look into his eyes as they wander away. We all knew from the start he'd never be the same. Yes, he's a hostage, his brain under siege. Is his freedom the ransom for this awful disease? The meal on his plate, the event today. Aside from the weather, not much to say. He wants to go home, he wants to go home. He just wants to leave, but there's no turning back from this wicked disease.